Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be ranking the Pride flags on a tier list. You can see here that I have a list of many of the Pride flags that you may know some of, and others are probably more obscure or less well known to you. So we will be ranking them today on this tier list, and without further ado, let's get started. So first and foremost, we do have the 1978 Pride flag, this one right here. You can see there are 7 colors of the rainbow. This flag, it's solid. It's a little busy. That is a common complaint that I have with pride flags, is that there are too many colors, in my opinion, on many of these flags. And for that reason, primarily, this flag is going to go in the C tier. Now, you can see down below here, there are a number of flags that are similar to this 1978 flag. So we're going to go over those flags first, starting with this flag right here. Now, this flag is the Gilbert Baker Pride flag. This is like the original Pride flag. This is what they started with before they got to this 7-color Pride flag. And this flag, as I'm sure you can imagine, is a little worse than the 1978 one, and the reason being there is one additional color. Thus, it is even busier than the already busy 1978 version. Allegedly, the reason that they decided to cut the color off in 1978 was that the pink color was harder to print. It was just more difficult for them to get pink cloth than it was for them to ignore the pink cloth. Thus, they cut it for more price reasons than they did for style choice. But I think in the cutting of that color, they made a good style decision in that the flag is more easily identifiable and what's the word? More easily reproducible by like children. It's easy to understand. It's just the 7 colors of the rainbow. Now, moving on the same note as that flag, we have, if I can find it here, this flag here. So you can see this flag here is the common 6-color flag over here, the traditional gay pride flag. Now, there are some pluses and minuses compared to the 1978 flag. One of the minuses is that you no longer have the 7 colors. Therefore, its symbolism kind of feels a little less, as the rainbow is the rainbow aspect of that is lost a little bit. You don't have your Roy G. Biv. However, as I've mentioned, one of my chief problems with the flags we've mentioned so far is the busyness of the flag, and by eliminating this teal color here, this turquoise, we have reduced that problem. Thus, I'm going to put the traditional gay pride flag in the B tier. Now, moving on to this flag here. This is called the Philadelphia Pride flag. One of the things, so the Philadelphia Pride flag, I can speak English. It's my first language, I swear. So the Philadelphia Pride flag takes the 6-color traditional gay pride, English, man, takes the traditional pride flag and it adds on 2 colors for people of color. Now, I personally, as I've mentioned, am not a fan of there being more colors. So this is the same number of colors as the Gilbert Baker flag. Thus, I'm not going to put it any higher than the Gilbert Baker flag. But I do think the flag is actually worse than the Gilbert Baker flag, and that is because the symbolism, in my opinion, is lost a little bit in the inclusion of racial symbolism here, without any distinction between how these interact with the rest of the symbolism on the flag. I don't feel like this flag is very good at distinctly representing the issues of black and brown folk from the different issues that people of different genders and different, sexualities represent. They have different issues than one another. I get the idea of the flag is to include those groups together, but I think the symbolism on this flag should be done in a way that is making it clear that these are distinct issues. Thus, that brings us over to this flag right here. This is one of the flags that we are seeing more commonly nowadays. And you can see there are a few things added. There's some of it got cut off in the image, but there's some white over here on the side. And it takes that the black and brown issue and puts it on a canton here, this little triangle, which I think is a great way of making it clear that this is a distinct thing from the sexualities. I think that's great. However, they have also added the colors of the trans flag, which we will get to later. And while I do like the fact that they have made this more distinct and more, I guess from a design element, it looks a little, I prefer it to this flag down here that we've put in the F tier. I do think we are already getting into the crazy busy, just this ridiculous level of busyness that we should not have to be dealing with these flags. These flags have way too much going on. So for that reason, and because I think it is still a little better than this flag, we're going to put that flag here in D tier. Now, this flag right here, going along the same trend as the last flag, it adds intersex into this corner, and it's just too busy. It's just too busy. There's too much going on with this flag. What was wrong with this flag, right? This flag, 6 colors. Pretty simple, right? 6 colors, already too many. This flag is ridiculous. It adds 2 more colors onto the flag. You might think, oh, but yellow and purple are already there. No, they're different shades. So it's kind of ridiculous. So for that reason, this flag, absolute failure. Hate it, not a fan. Now, we can finally move on from the sort of rainbow flag style. We're going to be ranking now, since we mentioned it, the trans flag. The trans flag, it's fairly identifiable. I think the use of only 3 colors makes it significantly better than most of these, and the symbolism in the flag is fairly good. So for that reason, I'm going to say that the trans flag is an A. This is our top flag so far. We have also mentioned one other flag so far, and that is intersex. The intersex flag, similar to the trans flag, I think is relatively identifiable. I think it's more unique relative to the other pride flags, and therefore, for that reason, this flag, not an F, it is also going to go into the A tier. I think these are 2 good flags. They represent what you want to be. They represent good vexillological principles. They are simple. They have symbolism. They are easily reproduced. Even a single children could reproduce this flag with just some crayons and a white piece of paper. So for that reason, these flags, A tier, fantastic. Now, speaking of white pieces of paper, we have the French flag here. Now, this flag was an actual flag of France for a period of time. I don't exactly remember how long. Now, to clarify, this flag here is not the flag of surrendering. I am specifically referring to the actual French flag, which looks exactly the same. They're both just white flags. But as this is a white flag, there is very little in the way of symbolism. There is very little in the way of identifying it and being able to distinguish it from the flag of surrendering, and of course, it represents the French. So this is an F for France. On that note, or on a different note, we're going to move on now to this flag right here. This is the Ally Pride flag. This flag is meant to represent people who are allies to the cause of various of these other flags here. And so the symbolism is okay. It's kind of a bit in your face in terms of how, it literally has an A in it. I don't like text on flags. Text is not good. Also, this flag, very busy. We added 2 colors back to the 6 color, but I think the symbolism is a little bit better than some of these flags down here. We're going to send this over to the B tier because I think this flag does a solid job of conveying its symbols, even though it is quite a bit busy. Speaking of flags that do good with their symbolism, we're going to move on now to this flag right here. This is the Labrys Lesbian Pride flag, and the double-headed axe and the triangle and the purple color of the main section of this flag do a fantastic job of symbolism and of representing what this flag is about. It is distinguishable from the other pride flags. You can actually tell what this one is at a glance without having to know all of the pride flags. Now, I know most people aren't going to know what this flag is. They've probably never seen it before in their life. But I think, as you can see down at the bottom, there are a lot of these, like, 5-6 color flags that, like, even if you study what flag colors mean what, would take a lot of effort to remember all of those. Whereas this one, it's very distinguishable. It's very unique. For that reason, I think this is a fairly solid flag and is going to go up into the A tier. Now, our S tier is getting a little lonely up here, so I think we should populate that a little bit. And for that, we have the flag of Chicago. The city of Chicago has a fantastic flag, very identifiable. It's simple. It's got 3 colors. Anyone can reproduce it, and its symbolism is top-notch. The flag of Chicago is what we're looking for this S tier. And I will say these A and S tier flags, they're all really good flags, right? Any flag that goes into this A tier or the S tier are good flags. Anything from B and below are flags that, you know, have something that they need to work on. And the F tier is just abysmal. Throw it out. Get rid of it. I don't like it. Moving on to, you know, we haven't done, you know, we've got a lot of these flags here, these sort of bunch of stripes here. Let's get into some of those, starting with the agender pride flag. Agender pride flag, regardless of what you think about the, I guess, meaning behind this flag itself, it's pretty busy. It's hard to distinguish from other pride flags. Its symbolism is, to be honest, a lot of these have symbolism that's pretty mediocre because the symbolism is just has to do with the colors, and they just make them stripes. Instead of, like, something that's a little better. This flag here with the, like, Canton's a little better. The intersex flag is even better, along with this flag up here. So these flags have some good actual symbol. Aside from the trans flag here, every flag in A and above so far has some symbolism beyond just the color that they're using. So for that reason, the agender flag, D tier, not a big fan. Next up, we have the aromantic flag. The aromantic flag suffers from the same issues that the agender flag has. In fact, 5 minutes from now, I would guarantee that almost none of you would be able to distinguish which of these flags are each other. They're both very busy. They use some of the same colors. They have very similar names. They have very similar symbolism. And to be fair, both of these things have very similar... Like, they are very similar things, so their flags being very similar makes some sense, but as far as flags go, that is something you want to avoid, and that takes us to the asexual flag. This one, more easily identifiable than some of the other flags. Why? Because it only uses 4 colors. Now, it doesn't quite reach the level of A tier, as the symbolism is mediocre, and we're still working with the stripes here. And I think it's a little worse than the trans flag as far as symbolism goes. So for that reason, this is going to get a B tier for the asexual flag. Now we're moving on to this flag right here. This flag right here represents something very interesting. This is the Bear Brotherhood flag. So this is a flag for people, you know, who like bears. I'll leave it up to you guys to interpret what kind of bears we're talking about, be it one in the woods or one that is, you know, not in the woods. That said, flag, I guarantee none of you knew what this flag was before I put it here. It's not very distinct. It uses, the colors are neat, but I do like the colors a bit more than some of the other ones in this D tier. However, it is still suffering from all of the same issues that these flags have. So, for that reason, we are going to put this flag into the C tier. Next up, we have the bisexual flag here. Now, the bisexual flag suffers from less of the busyness that a lot of the other flags have. In addition, we have different lengths of, or different heights for the stripes, which could represent, and I say could because I don't actually know this, but could represent the differing levels of attraction that bisexual people tend to have regarding how attracted they are to different genders. So we're going to set this one in B tier. It's a decent flag. It doesn't quite reach the level of this A tier here, but it is easily reproducible. It's easily identifiable if you have seen it and know what it means before. So it's going to earn that B tier slot. Next up, we have two flags that are very similar, and while they do differ from the typical, color stripes setting, they are still hard to distinguish from one another if you don't already know what they are. This is the demi-romantic flag. This is a flag for people who take a lot of, getting to know someone before they can feel romantically attached to them. And then this one here with the purple stripe is the demisexual flag. This being for people who take that same sort of needing a lot of closeness and interaction with a person before they can feel sexually attracted to someone. And thus, both of these flags, while better than some of these other flags down in the D and the F tier, are not particularly interesting on a symbolism-wise, and to be honest, they don't really look cool. So the C tier they go. But talking about cool flags, this flag right here, the drag pride flag, is the perfect example of a flag. You've got clear symbolism. You have it's unique. It's fairly identifiable, but it's very simple. And I think this is going to be our second inclusion into the S tier. Now, moving on, I'm going to go back to some of these, more stripy flags. Right here, we have the gay men's pride flag. This flag is boring. It's just a bunch of blue. It's not particularly interesting. It's going to go in the D tier for the same reasons that many of the others have gone into. However, there is one of these flags that I am going to put up into the C tier. One of these, boring stripy flags that's not rainbow that I'm going to put up in the C tier, and that is this flag right here. This is the trans-inclusive men's gay pride flag. It's very similar to the gay pride flag, and to be honest, I personally don't see the need to have created this flag, as I feel like people who use this flag could simply just be trans-inclusive. I don't see the need for a new flag, but it does have greater symbolism in that it was made to replace this flag as a trans-inclusive thing. So while I don't necessarily think this flag, from a design standpoint, is any better from this flag in terms of its representativeness of gay people, I do think that there is more symbolism involved because of the desire to use this flag over this flag. It has a richer history. So even though I don't think it's any better in a vacuum, I do think it is a better flag, and thus it will earn the C tier. Moving on to the lesbian pride flag here. For the same reason the gay pride flag is going to the D tier, this is going into the D tier as well. I don't think I need to explain much beyond that. Let's get some more stripes here. Gender fluid flag. The gender fluid flag, pretty boring, to be honest, and suffers from some of the same issues. I could put it up a little higher than some of these in the D tier, but because I am certain that almost no one is able to identify this flag, I think the symbolism is fairly weak. It's going to go into the D tier here. Now, we've been spending a lot of time down here on the bottom of the tier, so let's take a brief break from that and head up higher in the tier. We have the American flag. The American pride flag is such a well-made, symbolized flag. The only complaint that I have of the American flag is that it is a little too busy. There's a lot of stripes and a lot of stars. It's not necessarily a perfect flag. That said, it does represent a perfect country, and therefore, A tier for the American flag. A stands for America, so the American flag is going into the A tier. In addition, I'd like to spend a little more time still up here in the upper half of the tier list here. So we're going to skip on over to the leather pride flag. This is a unique flag. It's fairly identifiable. It's very distinct from many of the other flags, and therefore it's going to go into the A tier. And notice a trend with our A and S tier flags is that we are limiting ourselves to between 2 and 4 colors. I will point out, I'm fairly certain this purple here in the center of the crown is a different purple from the stripe. So I believe that counts as 4 colors here. We have between 2 and 4 colors here for every flag in the S and A tier. So that is a trend that I think is important to keep in mind, that having fewer colors and still managing to create good, meaningful symbols is an important thing for your flag designs. Speaking of having fewer colors and having powerful designs, we have the Israeli flag. The Israeli flag is an excellent flag. The symbolism is strong. It manages 2 colors while being very distinct and identifiable from a distance, and thus the Israeli flag will get an S tier. In addition to that, there are some other flags on this list that have some good symbolism and good use of colors. So while we have, this is an example of a good flag that uses only 2 colors, now I'm going to put an example of a flag that has 4 colors that is pretty good at its symbolism, and that is the Palestinian flag. The Palestinian flag uses the Pan-Arab colors of red, black, white, and green. The canton on the side is a very common trend among these colors. It is less identifiable than the Israeli flag. That is because many of the countries from the Pan-Arab region use a lot of the same colors and similar design themes for their flags, and for that reason, the Palestinian flag is going to go into the A tier. It is a pretty good flag design, but it is less identifiable from other flags. In addition to that, it is fairly common to see this flag at sort of pride events, but it is fairly uncommon to see some of these other more obscure ones, like this one here, or this one here. These more obscure, never seen before flags. Moving on to away from the more obscure flags and towards ones that everyone is familiar with, we are going to move on to the Frisian flag. This flag, I think, is a solid flag. It's got 3 colors. It's fairly unique, easily identifiable from a distance, and thus it is going to get an A tier. Now that we've spent some time up here in the A tier, let's move back on down to some of these more mediocre flags, some of the okay flags that aren't really blowing your mind with how good they are, but are, they're not like as bad as some of these down here. We're going to start off with the pansexual pride flag. Pansexual pride flag, I think it has decent symbolism here. I do also think that the use of 3 colors is better than the use of most of these others that use like 5 or 6 colors. We're going to send that into the B tier. This is definitely a low B. Some of these other flags, like these 2 here in the middle, are maybe a little better. Maybe this one's more identifiable than the pansexual flag, but still a decent flag. It's going to go into the B tier. Also in the B tier, we have the genderqueer flag. For many of the same reasons, we're only using 3 colors. The symbolism is fairly similar, if slightly weaker, but it's more identifiable than many of these other like 6 or 7 color flags. And speaking of 6 color flags, we have the map flag here. Now, the map flag, obviously, these are people who are not welcome in the Pride community. I myself am not a map or in the Pride community, but I am in the flag design, the vexillological community. And from a design standpoint, this flag does actually beat out some of these flags down here in D tier, just because of its use of sizing for its center stripe. it is able to include just a little more symbolism than some of these flags down here on the bottom. So while I, along with every reasonable person, may have a problem with the people who fly this flag, the flag itself is pretty middle of the road for pride flags. Now, with that said, you can see where I've listed these pride flags. I think pride flags personally tend to fall more on the lower end of the tier list compared to, say, country flags. I think country flags are pretty good. I think pride flags have a tendency to slip into the too many colors, not enough interesting symbolism traps. Although I will say that they beat out some state flags, for example. The United States state flags are pretty boring and or too busy as well. So both of these categories, state flags and pride flags, have their issues. Obviously, you have your standout flags that make it out of that problematic, I guess, design process. But for the vast majority of them, you can see that I've listed them below the A tier. And to clarify, I think the A tier is like really your goal when you're designing a flag. You do want to be at least in the A tier. If you're in the B tier, you have some pretty serious flaws, and while you're a passable flag, you really want to strive for that A tier flag design. And S tier flags, I think, are flags that are, while great, you can't necessarily know you're designing an S tier flag until people have picked it up and, and people really gravitate towards the design of these flags. Speaking of which, the Seychelles flag, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and I don't care enough to look it up. Fantastic flag, S tier, easily one of the greatest flags ever designed. It's easily identifiable from a distance, easily reproducible, and one of the few flags that manages to use more than 4 colors in a way that is stays interesting and doesn't appear too busy on a flag design. In terms of using 4 colors, however, we have a couple 4-colored flags remaining. Here we have one of the only 2. We have 2 4-color flags? No, we have only 4-color flags remaining. So here we have the leather pride flag, representing something very similar to our what was the one we said earlier? The rubber flag flag. I think I said this was the leather flag. English again will come to me. I think I said this was the leather pride flag. If I said that, I was mistaken. This is the rubber pride flag. The leather pride flag, I'm not as sold on this design. It is still more identifiable than a lot of pride flags, but it's I don't know, something about this design doesn't really speak to me. I'm going to set it in the C tier for now. Say it's a pretty mediocre flag. I think it's boring, really, is what it is. And it's, unnecessarily busy. We have 4 black and 4 blue stripes. This easily could have been, 2 and 2, or 1 and 1. And maybe this is just me not knowing the history of the symbolism on this flag and why there are the number of stripes that there are, but something about this flag, it just seems a little too busy. The last 2 flags, however, are not busy flags, and thus I am quite happy to say are not going to be in the C tier or below. We are ending here with a couple of decent flags, starting with the non-binary flag. The non-binary flag is still hard to, identify if you're not familiar with the flag. However, it is more easily identifiable and less busy than some of these flags underneath. So thus, it is going to get the B tier. And last, but not least, we have the polyamory flag. Once again, another 4-colored flag. I do like the use of symbolism in the polyamory flag. However, I don't like the use of symbols that are letters, and pi is certainly a letter in the Greek alphabet. With that said, pi is on this as a sort of symbol to represent a concept rather than as something to stand for something that starts with the letter pi, like this flag over here having that issue. So it's a decent flag. It's going to get the B tier. And you can see that with this tier list, we have quite a number of pride flags that fall into the sort of middle to bottom of the road, and several that are definitely no-goes when it comes to flag design. let me know what you think of some of these flags and or some of the flags that I did not bring up in the comments section below. Let me know if you disagree with any of my rankings. I think at the very least that my S and A tier rankings do belong in the S and A tier. And I will hold to those more strongly than I will hold to some of these other opinions. I think any of these flags in the B and below tier could be shuffled down a tier if you are a flag purist, a studier of vexillology. But yeah, this concludes my summary and my ranking of the pride flags, and hope you all have a great day.